Hello and welcome back to Gallbladder Gone Now What? My name is Jamie McQuivy, and I am so grateful that you are back here for part two of our MTHFR and digestion discussion. So, if you haven't listened to part one yet, you can head over there first. I've linked it in the description so you can catch up. In that episode, we covered the basics of what MTHFR is, what it means to have the C677T gene, and how it can impact digestion, bile flow, and even gallbladder function, as well as other things like foggy brain and fatigue. We also shared our first actionable tip there. So that is removing hidden folic acid from your supplements and pantry so your body can finally start using folate the way it was supposed to be used. So today we are going to go a little bit deeper. I'll be giving four more powerful must-do practices to support digestion, detox, and overall health when you have the MTHFR. You don't even need that gene to have these help you in your life. So these are all good things, but they're especially, I would say, mandatory for those of us who have kind of a history in this department. So these are going to be the strategies that actually work with your body instead of against it. So grab your herbal tea and let's dive in. All right, like we said, the first powerful thing that we need to do is to get rid of all folic acid. And you know, it can be a little bit of a pain, but once you take it out and you realize, oh my gosh, I feel so much better, it's actually not really tempting to put it back in. So so you can get flour, like if you're like, I'm not going to mill my own flour, then you can get white flour or like if you're a white flour person and just make sure it's not fortified. So if you're baking cookies, baking a cake, I also, when I go to the two restaurants, is I'll ask. So I went to a Mexican restaurant lately with my girlfriends, and I asked the waitress, because I was going to have vegetarian fajitas, which I absolutely love. And I said, do your tortillas have folic acid in them? And she goes, I don't know. Let me go check because it's always on the box. And she comes back and she goes, yes, it does. But our corn ones don't. I said, okay, then I'll choose the corn ones. When I went out with my son, I asked the waiter the same thing, and he came back and goes, it was for a different kind of wrap. And he said, yeah, unfortunately it does. And I said, okay, could you just wrap it in lettuce? And he's like, absolutely. And then he came back and he's like, oh my gosh, it looks so good wrapped in lettuce that the chef was going to put that as an option on the menu because it would look so amazing. So we can still go out to eat, but you may just have to forego the tortilla, the bun, whatever it is. The other day, a while ago, I went out with my husband and we found out that there was this burger I was going to have, this vegetarian burger, and the bun did not have folic acid, so I was able to eat it. And I didn't get a stomach ache. I was like, hallelujah. So that's the first one. All right, so what are the next four? So the second one is bile support. And I have sung about this on this podcast because it is it has so many benefits. So most protocols will focus on probiotics and fiber, but when you have the MTHFR, bile comes first. So we support bile with bitter herbs like gentian, dandelion, artichoke. I did a podcast on that. It'll be episode 3, Dining Out Without a Gallbladder. Try these 3 hacks where I talk about bitters and how important they are. And I have a links for all of these supplements that are my favorites in full script, which is in the show notes. So you just click on that and it has all of them. So then you just click the ones you want. You don't have to buy the whole bundle. But as you learn more, you can go back and it saves you 10%. Okay, I do have a bile there. So taking bile is going to be very important. So that I will link with my my first podcast I ever did was 6 hidden dangers of gallbladder removal. I wish I'd known. And I talk about bile there. The other things that help move bile is castor oil packs, in which I did in episode 9, 3 things they don't tell you until it's too late for your gallbladder, but not for you. And then we're going to want warm meals and regular eating rhythms. So these things, bitters, bile, castor oil packs, chewing our food, regular meal times are going to help that bile. Okay, so we want that bile to be moving nice and easy. Now, if bile doesn't move, digestion doesn't heal. And that's why a lot of people have a hard time. And why when I'm working with clients, like we sometimes we have to get a little bit aggressive in getting things to move, but we have to do it in the vein of making sure that it's also gentle. It's like aggressively gentle. All right. So the third thing that we're going to want to do is we need to calm the nervous system to restore digestion. The majority of my clients that I've had, and I was telling my husband this, someone was asking, who is my ideal client? And I was thinking, well, my ideal client is any woman who needs help, but who often comes to me and who finds me and is like, yes, I'm going to sign up are women who've had digestive problems, but the key factor is that they're all really intelligent women. So usually educated, usually have done a ton of research by the time they decide to actually come in and do the program, which I absolutely love. The counter to that is they are also tend to be high achieving women and women who are driven. And sometimes not sometimes, every single woman I have worked with, we have to work with her um, nervous system. We have to bring it back down, mine included. I am not saying that that's actually where that's where my daily practice comes in because I am driven. I like to do things. I can get wired and stuff. And so I notice this happens and I don't know which happens the first, is it the poor methylation or the nervous system dysregulation that causes the poor methylation that blah blah blah, it just goes back and forth. So they're deeply connected. And so when we have chronic stress, and what's interesting is that a lot of us will be like, oh, I don't feel like I'm chronically stressed. Um, but we get so used to being stressed that it actually doesn't feel we don't think it's stressful, but our body is like crazy. And I remember when I first like really started to calm my body, it almost felt uncomfortable because the buzzing, the constant buzzing, like the nervous system buzz when it's too high, I was so used to that that when it turned it off, it was like this profound quiet. And so when we work with this, and one of the I did episodes 41 and 42, which is becoming God-centered every day, 7 steps to healing prayer, because turning off that chronic stress is going to be imperative to regulating the nervous system, which in turn helps the methylation and digestive process, right? So when we're in chronic stress, and this is in that constant state of doing, right? I heard a phrase the other day when we were talking about Mary and Martha, and Mary's sitting at the feet of Christ, and Martha's go buzzing around. Is so many of us are Marthas. We're doing these things. And there was a quote that someone said that really stuck with me. It said, to be a better Martha, we need to be a better Mary. So, first things first, the first fruits that we give every day need to be to the Lord, need to be yoking with Him and entering the day in quiet contemplation, a calm nervous system, because when we have that chronic stress, it's going to burn through our methyl groups. It's going to thicken the bile. It's going to slow our motility and it's going to worsen our detox symptoms. So just because we can push through doesn't mean we should. And I say that to my clients all the time. Just because you can does not mean you should. And there is a big difference. So how do we support this? How do we rid ourselves of that chronic stress? First, foremost for me is prayer. Prayer, 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 and not the needing, begging, or quick prayers. The ones where you sit with the Lord. Like, I like the phrase, and I tell my husband this, I'm going to go spend time with the Lord because I don't want it to be a quick prayer. I don't want it to be just a fast scripture study. I want to go spend time with the Lord, and however long that takes. And my kids even knew that when I was spending time with, they could come in, but they knew I was spending time with the Lord, and so they gave me that space. Now, the second thing is prioritizing sleep. Again, this is a big part of where what I have in my program is there's a whole lesson about sleep patterns and how to um, help sleep, which is kind of ironic and interesting because the last 3 or 4 days, 2 days, I had really, really bad sleep. And I'm the first to say that I go back to all the videos in my program because I made them essentially for me and then for clients, right? And so I have to remember these things too. And I have to remember to eat slowly. To instead of go out and vigorously exercise, I have a there's a lesson called movement and rest in which we find the right balance between gentle movement and being needing to rest. So if we have too much movement, too much aggressive movement, it can actually be hard for our bodies to slow down and to relax. I have a whole section on breath work because the breath work reduces and relieves that chronic stress. And then we have supportive minerals, things like magnesium, and I love long soaks, magnesium baths. So, but it's important to realize you cannot supplement your way out of a dysregulated nervous system. So, I have conversations with people all the time who are like, "Oh, what do I take for my nervous system?" I'm like, there's a couple of herbs, there's adaptogens, but really it's a lifestyle. And unfortunately, we get uncomfortable with that lifestyle because it feels slow, it feels unproductive. Um, well, one of my favorite scriptures is where Jesus says, "Be still and know." So it's be still, and in that stillness, we will be given inspired action. So we can go around doing 100 things, but what if the Lord were to say, okay, these 3 things are the only important things that need to happen today? You suddenly can breathe, you can relax, and you get more done, ironically, than if you're just buzzing around doing things and they're not efficient, they're not effective. And so spending time with the Lord, sleeping, moving slower, doing some breath work, yoking with Him is going to be your way out of a dysregulated nervous system. So before we get into uh, strategy number 4 and 5, I just want to take a minute before we get to these last 2 non-negotiables and tell you that you do not have to do this alone. Healthy by Design, the creator's blueprint for healthy living, will walk you through each of the 5 phases. Phase 1, healing digestion, 7 weeks of learning to heal your digestion. It helps from the get-go. Number 2 is working with your mindset to make changes easier. This is where we talk about the nervous system and we start to really regulate and balance it. The third, we go in and balance the hormones, get you sleeping and feeling good and getting your energy back. Then we move into, which is really important for the MTHFR, if you have it, is the cleansing and restoring your body. So we need to first open those pathways before we cleanse, and then we can restore. And then 5, we put it all together and walk in health and faith. So click the link in the show notes and schedule a free 10-minute Healthy by Design consult. You can ask questions, but also make sure that you like and subscribe. And I really appreciate the support. And share this with someone you love because I am super dedicated to helping 100,000 women and heal themselves, their families, and their communities. All right, so let's get back. Number 4 of this strategic plan is to eat greens every single day, but strategically. So I'm not talking about iceberg lettuce and I'm not talking about only spinach. I'm talking about a plethora of greens, chard, spinach, kale. Um, I personally like a lot of sprouts that I sprout in my home, the microgreens. Um, so what happens, they are medicine for your liver. So greens provide the natural bioavailable folate. So not folic acid, folate, the natural God-made amazing stuff. The kind your body recognizes and knows what to do with without overwhelming your system the way synthetic folic acid can. So, but there's more. Greens also thin your bile. They increase bile flow. And so we actually want them to be a little bit bitter, like arugula, London rocket, these amazing greens. They support estrogen clearance. They get that out of the body. They feed our beneficial gut gut bacteria. I get excited when I think about greens because they're also so easy to grow. So you can have, I have a whole bunch in my garden. They provide minerals needed to detoxify these enzymes. So for people who have or suspect that they have this C677T gene, this is huge because when bile is thick and stagnant, digestion suffers, especially fat digestion, and toxins get recycled over and over. And but instead of getting eliminated. And when I say recycled, what I mean is that goes through the liver tries to use it and sends through a more toxic substance. It just gets more and more toxic. And so that's where the beans with the soluble fiber, the fresh milled grains come in handy, and the greens. And I had a friend, we were talking a long time ago because I get so excited about these things. And she's like, we need to make you a t-shirt that says, everybody needs beans, greens, grains, and Jesus. And I'm like, absolutely, that is my favorite. So hopefully I will get a shirt like that. So, because that's everybody needs beans, greens, grains, and Jesus. All right. So, the key is consistency, not necessarily volume. So yeah, maybe a cup a day would be nice. So we don't need these huge salads that make you bloated or even cold. Like in the winter, one of my favorite things is I get a pan and I put some nice avocado oil and a little bit of ghee in it, and I put a whole bunch of garlic. And then I take greens and I turn off the stove top and I just kind of stir them in until they become this bright green. So they're warm, they're garlicky. Then I add salt and pepper. It's so good. So you can lightly cook the greens, like I said, for if your digestion is a bit sensitive. Warm greens with fat. So I always with your greens, put a little squeeze of lemon on it because the vitamin C helps us absorb iron better. Um, and so I want you to think sauteed, wilted, steamed, and then blended into soups even will help. And as well as, so I like to have raw and I like to have cooked as much as I can. All right, so the fifth thing that I'm going to tell you to do is open those cleansing pathways, right? So this might be one of the most important things because people jump straight into detoxes, cleanses, fasts, binders, and anti-parasites, and of course it's the beginning of the year, so it's like the new year, new me, and not really knowing enough to think the process all the way through. And then they wonder why they feel worse. So now if you have the MTHFR gene, this approach can backfire badly. And that's because detox is not about releasing toxin. It's about being able to eliminate them. Let me say that again. Detoxification is not about releasing toxins. It's about being able to eliminate them. So before any cleanse, your body needs open bile flow. It needs regular bowel movements. It needs adequate minerals, and it needs a calm nervous system. So this is why this is phase 4 in my program. It's not phase 1 because first we need to work on digestion. We need to get the open bile flow. We need to get you having regular bowel movements. We need to get you replenished with minerals. Then we need to get your mindset right, right? We need to calm that nervous system. We need to put our body in a state of rest and digest so it can eliminate and let go. Then we're going to balance those hormones, right? We need to make sure we have the right things coming in and some things going out. And then we can cleanse and restore. So that's why it's a whole protocol. And a lot of people don't understand what a protocol is. They think it's 3 things, and it's not. So this is a really huge, wonderful, beautiful, all-inclusive way to approach your health. So if toxins are mobilized, but they can't exit, right? So we've stirred it up. I want you to think of like a pond that kind of looks clear, but if you put a stick in it and stir it up, all that dirt comes to the surface, and then it kind of just settles. But what happens in the body is that intensifies our symptoms. Inflammation goes through the roof, and then we start to get things like headaches, anxiety, and digestive distress. I remember When I didn't know this stuff, I decided to do a water fast, a 3-day water fast. And that is very intense. And about the second day, um, I couldn't get up off the bed. I was feeling nauseous. My head hurt. I couldn't see. Anyway, I called my friend, and because my husband was at work, and she came in and I was like, I need you to help me. I don't know what to do. And she goes, let me make you a juice. So she made me a fresh pressed juice, and I started sipping on that. And right away I felt better because I like my body started balancing again. And then I was like, okay, we can't do that again. And learning how to do it correctly so my body could be successful. So when we have that MTHFR, especially this often shows up: gallbladder pain, constipation, skin reaction, hormonal flares, chronic fatigue. It's the safer sequence I gave you before is make sure all these things are in place so that your body naturally and effectively can do its job. So this is not a weakness. This is wisdom. So we take all this knowledge that we have. This is another thing I will, shout from the rooftops. So many people are gaining information. This is the information age. We have so much information, but information is useless unless we put it to use. And when we take information and put it together with usefulness, we create wisdom. And just like all throughout Proverbs and the Bible, we are to seek wisdom first. So we seek God's way first, and we take the information we have, we put it into use, and that creates our wisdom. So when cleansing pathways are open, the body detoxifies naturally, even the mind. Minds get clearer. People talk about spiritual experiences. And God does this without force, without fear, and without flare-ups, right? It's a gentle and beautiful way to approach our whole life, really, because every time we're eating and breathing, we need to also, so anytime we take something in, eating, breathing, listening, reading, all of those things, we need to process it, and it needs to come out some way. And so that's what we're going to be doing for the rest of our lives. So here's what I want you to hear clearly. The MTHFR is not a diagnosis, and it's not something to say, well, that's it. My body's horrible and it's betrayed me and my genes are, thanks mom and dad. But what it does is it gives us a blueprint. And what I love, love, love about God is that under his principles, everything falls under there. So if you have MTHFR, if you have cancer, if you have a family history of diabetes, if you have a family history of heart conditions, if you have family history of kidney disease, anything, it all falls under his principles. That's it. So when you follow these principles, you won't heal one thing. You'll heal a multitude of things because that's how he works. So this blueprint that just because we're able to understand scientifically a little bit more this is why some of us do not tolerate supplements very well, and why detoxification protocols backfire and make us feel horrible and we get worse. And this is why digestion doesn't improve despite, quote, doing everything right, and why gallbladder issues are more common than we are told. I have many women who will reach out to me who haven't lost their gallbladder, but they're on the road and they want to save it. And I work with those women too, because the principles are the same. And so when you work with your genetics instead of against them, healing gets simpler, not harder. And that's when we learn about the principles. So the principles that how you perceive them today, let's say you're a 30-year-old woman, um, you're gonna be able to adjust those principles when you're pregnant, and then you're gonna be able to adjust them during perimenopause and during menopause and during times for other women for it's times of stress, moving, changing careers, whatever it is. When we have these changes in life, we know the principles, we can apply the principles correctly. And then we can apply them for our spouses and for our children and for our parents. So it makes God works in ways that help everybody. So in this episode, I hope it resonated with you. So please share it with somebody who struggles with digestion or hormones. Check out the supplements that I have posted in my link. And also check your own in the back and make sure that you replace those with real folate instead of folic acid. And then start asking better questions about root causes, and let's get you the help that you need. And if you, again, want help navigating this and having a plan laid out with videos, PDFs, and my support that is faith aligned and actually sustainable, this is what we do inside of Healthy by Design, the creator's blueprint for healthy living. So until next time, remember that your body is not broken. It has not betrayed you. It's just asking to be understood. Until next time, happy digesting. Before you go, I have a little surprise for you today as a thank you for listening. If you're enjoying this podcast, I'd love your help in getting out to more hands and hearts. When you share an episode on social media along with what you learned or loved and tag me, you'll be entered to win a free mini coaching session with me. Every share counts as an entry. Make sure to hit subscribe so you never miss what's coming next, and keep those reviews and topic suggestions coming. They truly mean so much to me, and I'm grateful that you're here.